Welcome back to the deep dive. Usually when we talk about things like business strategy or world building, we're looking at tech giants in Silicon Valley or these massive media conglomerates like Disney.
Right. The usual suspects.
Exactly. But today we are pivoting. We're looking at a story about a group of 9 guys from Staten Island who managed to pull off one of the most improbable business and, well, cultural coups of the last 30 years.
It really is a unicorn story. I mean, if you pitch this business plan to a venture capitalist today,
Oh, forget it.
hey, I have 9 distinct founders. They all have completely different ideas. They fight constantly, and their product is aggressively hostile to all the current market trends. You would be laughed out of the room.
Left, right, out. Absolutely. And yet they didn't just survive. They created a blueprint. We are, of course, talking about the Wu-Tang Clan. But we aren't just here to, fanboy over the songs. Our mission today is a comprehensive legacy analysis. We have a stack of sources here that covers literally everything, from their origins in the gritty New York of 1992 all the way to their surprising current activities in 2024 and even 2025.
And we really need to emphasize that current part. I think a lot of people, they sort of freeze the Wu-Tang Clan in amber, somewhere around 1997.
Totally. That's the classic era.
Right. But the dossier we're working from, it paints this picture of a group that is currently involved in everything from composing classical ballets.
A ballet. I love that we're starting there.
to lecturing on physics at MIT. It's an insane trajectory.
We are going to get to the ballet, I promise.
What?
But before we get to the high art, we have to start in the basement. We have to start at the beginning. To understand why Wu-Tang was such a shock to the system, you really have to understand the context of 1992. Because if you turned on the radio in 92, what were you hearing?
You were hearing the West Coast. Specifically, you were hearing Dr. Dre and the Chronic.
Which is an undeniable classic, let's be clear.
Oh, it's a masterpiece.
Yeah.
An absolute masterpiece. But think about the texture of that sound.
Okay.
It was G-funk. It was polished. It was smooth. It was incredibly melodic.
Yeah.
It was music made for driving a convertible in Los Angeles with the top down.
Right. It was gin and juice.
It was gin and juice. It was sunshine and synthesizers. It felt bright.
It was slick, felt expensive.
Exactly. And meanwhile, you've got New York City, the birthplace of hip-hop, and it's kind of having an identity crisis. The music scene felt a bit stagnant.
Sure.
New York is cold, it's concrete, it's crowded. It just didn't resonate with that laid-back sunshine vibe from the West Coast. And then, completely out of nowhere, you get this swarm of killer bees from Staten Island.
And they didn't just bring a different sound with them. They brought what our source material calls a sonic counter-revolution.
That is the perfect term for it. RZA, the mastermind behind the group, he looked at what Dr. Dre was doing.
Yeah.
He went 180 degrees in the other direction.
He just completely rejected it.
A total rejection. He didn't want polished. He wanted grimy.
So when you say grimy, what does that actually mean in a technical sense?
Yeah.
Because to a modern ear, it might just sound old school, but at the time, this was a very, very specific choice.
It was a choice to reject clarity. So RZA was sampling old soul records, just like Dre, but he wasn't cleaning them up. He kept the vinyl crackle. He kept the hiss.
He wanted you to hear the needle on the record.
Yes, he used drum machines, but he programmed the drums to sound like they were being hit in a dungeon. They were heavy, dusty, a little bit muffled. They weren't crisp.
And the piano loops.
The piano loops, that's the key. He used piano loops that were slightly out of tune.
That out-of-tune piano on CREAM is just iconic. It makes you feel, unsettled.
It creates tension. That's exactly it. Dr. Dre's music was designed to relax you. RZA's music was designed to put you on edge.
Right.
And then, as if that wasn't enough to make it even weirder, he layered in all this dialogue from obscure 1970s kung fu movies.
The RZA, the GZA.
Yeah.
You hear the movie clips before the beat even drops.
Yeah. You'd hear swords clashing and these old masters lecturing students about discipline and technique.
It was so atmospheric, it felt like you were watching a movie with your eyes closed. You were immediately transported somewhere else.
And that brings us right to the core philosophy. Our sources highlight this again and again. Wu-Tang wasn't just a rap group. It was a triangulation of 3 very specific influences that had never been mixed together before.
Okay, let's unpack this triangulation.
Yeah.
Because this is the secret sauce, right? This is what made it all work.
Yeah.
Element 1, Eastern philosophy.
Specifically, the ethos of the Shaolin Temple as they saw it in the movies. They were obsessed with it.
Disciplines.
The discipline, the training, the idea of different styles. They viewed lyrical battling as literal sparring.
So it's not just a rap battle, it's a sword fight.
It's a sword fight. If
Yeah.
you come to the mic, your sword style, your flow, your words, your cadence, it has to be sharper than the other guys. That's why GZA is the genius with the liquid sword. It's all part of this warrior ethos.
Right, which explains the name, obviously. But then you mix that with element two, which is the 5% nation. Now, this is something that I think a lot of casual listeners completely miss. What is the 5% nation and why does it matter so much to their lyrics?
This is absolutely crucial. The 5% Nation, or the Nation of Gods and Earths, is a movement that broke off from the Nation of Islam. It was huge in New York prisons and projects in the 80s and 90s.
Right.
And a core part of their teaching is something called supreme mathematics.
Supreme mathematics, that sounds intense.
It is. It's essentially a system of coding, a sort of Gnosticism. They assign deep spiritual meanings to numbers and letters of the alphabet. So, for example,
Yeah.
the number 1 represents knowledge, the number 7 represents God, the number 0 is cipher.
So when you hear them rapping and they say something like, I'm dealing with the mathematics, they aren't talking about algebra.
Not at all. They're talking about spiritual understanding, a deeper truth. It's about seeing the code behind reality.
So it's almost like verbal encryption.
That is exactly what it is. And for the fans, it was like a secret handshake. When they put this stuff in the lyrics, it made the music feel dense and esoteric. If you were an outsider, it just sounded like cool-sounding gibberish.
Right.
But if you were an insider, or if you were a kid in the suburbs who was willing to go to the library and do the research, it felt like you were decoding a secret message. It made you, the listener, feel smart.
It creates a deeper level of engagement. You're not just listening, you're studying.
You're part of the club. You're in on the secret.
Okay, so you have Kung Fu warriors, you have this spiritual math, and then the third element ties it all down to the ground.
Yeah.
The New York street life.
Right. The whole thing would just be a fantasy if it wasn't for this. They took these incredibly high concept ideas, ancient warriors and supreme mathematics, and they applied them directly to the harsh reality of the Staten Island housing projects.
Which they famously renamed Sholin.
And we cannot gloss over that renaming. That wasn't just slang. Our sources frame it as a psychological survival tactic.
How so? What does that mean?
Well, think about it. Imagine you are living in the Stapleton projects. It's dangerous, it's poverty-stricken, the government has basically forgotten about you. Staten Island is literally called the Forgotten Borough.
Right.
If you just see it as the projects, it's depressing. It's a trap. But if you and your friends reframe it as Shaolin, an ancient mythical land of warriors where you are being tested every day, suddenly your struggle has meaning.
You aren't just a poor kid in a bad neighborhood anymore.
No, you are a monk in training. You are honing your skills. The crack vial on the ground isn't just trash, it's an obstacle in your training course. The police siren isn't just a threat, it's a test of your focus.
Wow.
They superimposed a myth over their reality. It's a classic example of what psychologists call cognitive reframing. They built a cinematic universe in their heads long before they built it on vinyl.
I love that. It's the power of narrative to change your circumstances before they're actually changed. But a narrative is only as good as the guy selling it. And that brings us to the architect.
Yeah.
The RZA. To understand the business success of Wu-Tang, we have to look at RZA's master plan. But the source material points out something I absolutely did not know. The master plan didn't start with some brilliant success. It started with a humiliating failure.
This is the best part of the story for any entrepreneur listening. It's so important. Before Wu-Tang, RZA was signed as a solo artist to Tommy Boy Records under the name Prince Rakeem.
Prince Rack, it sounds noble.
It was goofy. It was so goofy. In 1991, he released an EP called Ooh, I Love You, Rakeem.
You're kidding me. Ooh, I love you, Rakeem. Wait, the RZA, the guy who produces the grimiest, darkest, most mellowing beats in history? He was doing Loverboy rap.
He was, and it was bad. It was cheesy. The label tried to mold him into this generic, radio-friendly rapper. It had this silly video. It just wasn't him.
And it flopped.
It flopped hard, and he was dropped. He was humiliated.
So he's back in Staten Island. He's broke. He's officially a failed rapper. That's his label now.
But that failure, that's what gave him the vision. He learned the most important lesson of his life from that experience.
Which was?
If you let someone else control your creative destiny, they will ruin you. He realized that money without control is a trap. The advance from the record label doesn't matter if they force you to make something you don't believe in.
So he realized he needed total control. Autonomy.
Control.
Oh.
So he rallies the troops. He gets his cousins, GZA and Old Dirty Bastard. He gets the neighborhood guys, Method Man, Raekwon, all of them. He forms the clan. And he comes up with this now legendary 5-year plan.
And this is where the business genius really kicks in. He goes to Loud Records with a proposal that frankly sounds insane on paper.
It was completely unheard of. At that time, a record deal was effectively a 360 deal before they called it that. The label owns you. If you are in a group, think of NSYNC or the Backstreet Boys, you can't just go off and release a solo album on a competitor's label.
Of course not. The label wants to lock down all the assets. They want to own the whole pipeline.
Right. And RZA flipped the script. He went into Loud Records and he said, okay, we will sign the group, the Wu-Tang Clan, to you, and we will take a terrifyingly low advance.
He left money on the table on purpose.
He left a lot of money on the table. We're talking about splitting a tiny check 9 ways. It was basically peanuts for each member.
They must have thought he was crazy.
They probably did. But, and this is the but that changed the history of the music industry, in exchange for taking less cash up front, he demanded one specific non-negotiable clause in the contract.
What was it?
That every individual member of the group remained a free agent for their solo careers. They could sign a solo deal with any other label they wanted.
Wait. So RZA could sign the group to Loud Records, but then Method Man could turn around and go sign a solo deal with Def Jam.
Yep.
And Raekwon could go to RCA. And GZA could go to Geffen.
Exactly what happened.
That is wild. Why on earth would Loud Records agree to that? They are literally cultivating talent for their biggest competitors. It makes no business sense.
They agreed because they were focused on the short term. They thought they were getting a bargain. They got this hot new group for super cheap. They didn't understand the long-term strategy.
RZA was playing chess while they were playing checkers.
That's the cliche, but it's true. He essentially treated liquidity cash in his pocket right now for leverage freedom and power later. He knew the group was the launching pad.
And the result of this strategy was what?
The result was that RZA basically tricked the entire music industry into working for him for free.
How do you mean?
Think about it. Def Jam is spending millions of dollars to market Method Man. Geffen is spending millions to market GZA. Epic is spending millions on Ghostface. But every time one of them gets famous, whose brand does it elevate?
Wu-Tang.
The Wu-Tang brand. It all points back to the mothership. He crowdsourced his marketing budget to the biggest corporations in America.
That is just brilliant. It's diabolical in a way.
It was brilliant, and from 1993 to 1997, the effect was a total market takeover. You couldn't walk into a record store without seeing that W logo. They just flooded the market.
But because they were on different labels and had these different styles and personas, it didn't feel like saturation. It felt like an invasion.
Exactly. It felt like a movement.
It really is the Marvel Cinematic Universe model 20 years early. It's uncanny.
It's the perfect comparison. Enter the Wu-Tang 36 Chambers is the Avengers movie. It establishes the team, introduces all the characters.
You see their powers, you see their dynamic.
Exactly. But then you get phase 1 of the solo albums. And these aren't just albums, they are character studies, deep dives.
Right, you don't just get another group album right away. You get these incredibly detailed spin-off movies.
And just like Marvel, RZA was the Kevin Feige figure. He was the executive producer on all the solo albums, regardless of the label.
So he kept the creative control.
He kept the sonic continuity, he controlled the sound, the look, the release schedule. He made sure that if you bought Raekwon's album, there was a guest verse from Ghostface on there that was so good it made you want to go buy Ghostface's album next week.
It was a perfect cross-promotion feedback loop.
A completely self-sustaining ecosystem.
So let's talk about those characters. Because a cinematic universe is only as exciting as its heroes, right? We have a dossier here on all the members, and we have to be thorough here because the dynamic between them, this brotherhood, is what makes the whole thing work. You have, what, 10 very different, very strong personalities?
It's a very delicate ecosystem. I mean, if they were all the same, it would be boring. But if they were too different, it would have fallen apart in 5 minutes.
Okay, let's break them down by archetype. I think that's the best way to do it. Let's start with the lyrical pillars, the guys who brought the pure, uncut technical mastery.
Then you have to start with GZA, the genius.
The spiritual head of the group.
Yeah, he's the oldest member, he's RZA's cousin, and he's probably the most disciplined lyricist of the bunch. If RZA is a director, GZA is the head writer.
His style is so distinct. It's described here as monotone, precise, and incredibly dense. He doesn't yell, he lectures.
That's a great way to put it. He's the one dropping references to quantum physics and chess and astronomy, while everyone else is talking about street fights. His rhymes are like puzzles you have to unpack.
And his solo album, Liquid Swords from 1995, is widely considered the lyrical peak of the entire collective, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's just a masterpiece of writing. It's dark, it's intellectual, it's cinematic. And what's fascinating is where he is today.
Right. Let's check the 2024-2025 updates. He's not just, resting on his laurels, playing the hits.
Not at all. GZA has leaned fully into that genius persona. For the last several years, he's been partnering with universities like MIT and Harvard.
What's he doing with them?
He's promoting science education through hip-hop. He goes on tours of colleges, giving lectures. He's been working on a concept album called Dark Matter for years now, which is entirely about astrophysics and the origins of the universe.
So he's actually walking the walk of being this intellectual rapper. He's living the gimmick.
It's not a gimmick. It's who he is. He's genuinely that curious and that smart.
That's incredible. Okay, the other lyrical pillar, Inspected Deck.
The Rebel INS. I like to call him the technician.
He's the opening batter, right? That's what they call it.
That's his role. On so many classic Wu-Tang songs, Deck goes first. And there's a reason for that. He sets the bar. He comes out with this burst of complex, multisyllabic energy that just grabs you.
He has this incredible ability to be super complex, but also really catchy at the same time. His verse on the song Triumph, we have to talk about Triumph.
You have to. It's one of the greatest verses in hip-hop history.
I bomb atonically.
Socrates' philosophies and hypotheses can't define how I be dropping these mockeries. That opening sequence is just legendary. It's a lyrical gauntlet thrown down on the first line.
And yet he didn't have the huge commercial solo career that some of the others had in the 90s?
No, and there's a really tragic reason for that. His debut album, Uncontrolled Substance, was almost completely lost in a flood.
A literal flood.
A literal flood in RZA's basement studio destroyed something like 100 beats, including most of Deck's album. He had to rebuild it from scratch, and by the time it came out, the momentum was kind of gone.
That is absolutely heartbreaking for an artist.
It is, but look at him now. This is the amazing part. In the last decade or so, he has had this massive renaissance with a group called Czarface.
Right, that's his collaboration with the underground duo 7L and Esoteric.
Yes, and it's this perfect blend of golden age hip-hop and Jack Kirby-style comic book aesthetics. It's nerdy, it's fun, it's lyrically incredible. They've released over 10 albums, including one in 2022 called Zarmageddon. Inspected Deck found this whole new lane by leaning into the comic book and nerd culture that was always a part of Wu-Tang's DNA anyway.
He found his second act. That's great.
Okay,
So we have the lyrical pillars. Now let's talk about the stars, the guys whose faces were on the posters. You have to start with Method Man.
Johnny Blaze. Yeah, Method Man was the face of the group from day one. He had the look, the charisma, the incredibly husky, distinctive voice.
He was a rock star.
He was the rock star. He was the gateway drug for a lot of suburban fans.
He was the cool one.
He is the cool one, and his trajectory has been the most traditional Hollywood success story. He was the first to get a major solo album, Tata Call, and then he successfully pivoted to acting.
Yeah, he's a serious actor now. He's a regular on the show, Power Book 2, Ghost. He's in movies. He's really good.
He's excellent. But here's the surprising thing about him. Usually when rappers go Hollywood, their musical skills, they tend to decline. They get rusty.
They stop caring about the bars, yeah.
Method Man has done the complete opposite. Our sources note that even now, in his 50s, he frequently goes viral on social media for his freestyles and guest verses. His breath control and his flow are arguably better now than they were in 1994.
He still works at it.
He treats it like an athletic sport. He's in the gym. He's practicing. He refuses to be the old guy who can't keep up with the young kids. It's a matter of pride for him.
That is so rare. I respect that a lot. Okay, next star. Raekwon, the chef.
Raekwon is the street narrator. He's the griot. If GZA is writing a dense sci-fi novel, Raekwon is writing a gritty mafia movie.
His album only built 4 Cuban links, the famous Purple Tape.
Mm-hmm.
It basically pioneered the whole genre of mafioso rap, right?
It absolutely did. This is where they fully adopt the mafioso aliases, right? Raekwon is Lex Diamond's, Ghostface is Tony Stark's.
They're treating the drug game with the gravity and glamour of a Martin Scorsese film.
Exactly. And he introduced so much slang, what he called slangwage, that he literally changed the lexicon of New York hip-hop. He was calling money cream, clothes, gear. A lot of words we just take for granted now. He popularized them.
And where is the chef today?
Today, he's the business mogul. He has his own high-end wine label called Licata. He's heavily invested in the cannabis industry. He's treating his legacy like a diversified portfolio.
Right.
Very smart. And the rumor is he's dropping one final album titled The Emperor's New Clothes sometime in 2025.
Okay, I'll be looking out for that. And you can't mention Raekwon without his partner in crime, Ghostface Killah.
Tony Starks. You can't. They're a duo, Ghostface says. He's my personal favorite, I think, because he represents the soul of the group.
He's the emotional one.
He is incredibly emotional and vulnerable in his music. He raps with this frantic urgency, like he's running out of breath, and he has to tell you the story before he dies.
Yeah, that's a perfect description of his flow. It's so urgent.
Yeah, and he'll detail everything from heartbreak and betrayal to childhood trauma and poverty in a way that is just so raw and unfiltered. His style is often described as stream of consciousness.
And musically, he seems to be the most consistent over the long haul.
Without a doubt. He's released more high-quality solo albums than anyone else in the group. And he's the bridge to the modern underground. He collaborates with younger, gritty artists like the Griselda, Camp Westside Gun, Conway.
Like, keeps his ear to the street.
Always.
Yeah.
He just released a massive album, Set the Tone, in 2024. He never really went pop. He just stayed in the lane he created 3 decades ago and perfected it.
Okay, now we have to talk about the wild card. The agent of chaos. Old dirty bastard.
ODB Dirt McGirt. Big baby Jesus. He had a million names.
He was the jester of the group. The trickster.
He was the trickster god. The chaos magic. Musically, he was a genius because he simply ignored the roles. He didn't rap on beat. He would half sing. He would slur his words. He would scream. You never knew what he was going to do next.
And it created this perfect contrast to GZA's cold precision.
Exactly. It was the embodiment of order and chaos in one group. You needed both. Tragically, as many people know, he passed away in 2004 from a drug overdose.
But his legacy is managed in a really interesting way.
It is. His son, who goes by Young Dirty Bastard, now tours with the group and performs his father's verses, and it's eerily similar. The look, the voice, the mannerisms. It's a way of keeping that chaotic energy alive in the live show.
And there was that documentary in 2024, right? The source material mentions A Tale of Two Dirties.
Yes, and that was so important because it helped humanize him. For years, ODB was treated as this cartoon character or a public train wreck.
Oh, just a joke.
The documentary really focused on the fact that he was likely struggling with severe, undiagnosed mental health issues. It reframed his story from a comedy to a tragedy, which I think was necessary and long overdue.
Absolutely. Okay, we can't forget the foundation, the guys who hold the floor up. U-God, Master Killa, and Capadonna.
The unsung heroes, in a way. U-God is the bass. He has that deep, booming baritone voice. He actually wrote a memoir called Raw that is probably the best insider account of the group's internal fights and business dealings. It's brutally honest.
Master Killa.
Master Killa is the loyalist. He was actually the last one to join the group. He was GZA's protege. The story is he learned to rap while they were recording the first album.
Wow, no pressure.
Right. His verse on Dumb Mystery of Chess Boxin' was literally the first rap he ever wrote. He's quiet, very focused on the 5% teachings. He's kind of the glue that holds the live shows together now.
And Capadonna, the unofficial 10th member.
Yeah, the story with him is that he was a huge part of the crew early on, but was incarcerated during the recording of the first album, so he missed out. But he became integral by the second album, Wu-Tang Forever, and he's been surprisingly prolific lately, releasing multiple solo projects in 2024 and 2025. He's the grinder of the group.
So that's the roster. It's like a superhero team.
Yeah.
But I want to circle back to RZA. We left him in the 90s as the mastermind producer. Where's the Abbott now in 2025?
This is the plot twist of the century. RZA has, in many ways, transcended hip-hop. He is now a legitimate composer.
When you say composer, you don't just mean making beats.
I mean classical music. In 2024, RZA wrote and released a full ballet score.
A ballet.
A ballet. It's titled A Ballet Through Mud, and it was performed by the Colorado Symphony Orchestra.
Wait, let me get this straight. The guy who produced Protect a Yannick in a flooded basement with broken equipment wrote a ballet for a major symphony.
That is the arc. That's the journey. He went from sampling strings on a cheap sampler to writing for a full string section. He talks about it as his evolution from being a beat maker to a composer.
That's incredible.
And on top of that, he's the curator and executive producer of the Hulu series Wu-Tang. an American saga which fictionalized their rise. He has effectively become the historian and the high art ambassador for the very culture he created in a basement.
It just breaks every stereotype of what a rapper's career path is supposed to look like.
It proves that the genius moniker wasn't just marketing, he's the real deal.
So we have the history, we have the business model, we have all the characters. But this is the deep dive, and we promise to extract the actionable lessons. This isn't just music history. Our sources frame it as sociology. What can we, regular people, learn from the philosophy of the Wu-Tang Clan?
The source material identifies 4 key societal lessons. These are the big takeaways that apply whether you're a rapper, an accountant, or a teacher.
Okay, let's hit lesson 1. It's their most famous slogan, maybe the most famous phrase in all of hip-hop. CREAM.
Cash rules everything around me.
Now, when I hear that, or when most people hear it, the immediate thought is that it's a flex. It's a celebration of greed. I love money. Money is the best.
Right. It's often misinterpreted as this raw capitalist anthem. But if you actually listen to the verses of the song, it's the exact opposite. It is a tragedy.
How so? Unpack that for us.
The lesson here is about economic realism. The song is about the trauma of poverty. When they say cash rules everything around me, they aren't celebrating it. They are observing a harsh, painful truth. When you are broke, you are not free.
Right.
Your choices are limited by your lack of capital. You can't pursue your dreams. You can't protect your family.
Poverty is a distraction.
It's the ultimate distraction. When you are worrying about rent or food
Yep.
or your physical safety, you cannot focus on higher pursuits like art or philosophy. So the famous hook, Dal Dollar Bill Y'all, it's not a celebration. It's a desperate plea for financial literacy.
It's a warning.
It's a warning. It's saying, you need to understand how money works or this system will crush you. It's a survival manual, not a party track.
That completely reframes the whole song for me. It's about the stress of scarcity, not the joy of abundance. Okay, lesson 2. Resilience and collective power.
This is the union model. Think
Yeah.
about them individually. On their own, these guys were vulnerable. Some were dealing drugs, some were failed artists like RZA, some were just trying to get by. The system was designed to chew them up and spit them out.
But together,
Together, they were a corporation. They were an army. The lesson is about the power of collective bargaining.
yeah?
They fought each other constantly, physically, legally, you name it. You God's book is full of it. But when they faced the outside world, the record labels, the media, the police, they stood as a phalanx, as one unit.
I'll form the head, you form the arms and legs. That's from one of their songs.
Precisely. It teaches us that in a hostile environment, your network is your shield. Your brotherhood is your strength. You cannot survive as a lone wolf. You need a clan. A legitimate business is built on trust, even if that trust is tested constantly.
Lesson 3. This one goes back to that supreme mathematics idea, knowledge of self.
This is the autodidact's anthem. It's about self-education. That inspect a deck line from Triumph is the key here. Socrates' philosophies and hypotheses can't define how I be dropping these mockeries.
He is explicitly rejecting the canon of Western thought.
Yes, he is rejecting the idea that the only valid knowledge, the only real intelligence, comes from a university or a classical textbook.
He's saying, I didn't go to college, but I'm smarter than your professor because I have a different kind of knowledge.
He's saying, I have knowledge of self. I know who I am, I know my history, and I know my worth, independent of what the mainstream educational system tells me. The lesson is that you must be the architect of your own education. RZA is the ultimate example. He reads constantly, he studies music theory, he studies film directing, he studies philosophy. He didn't wait for a degree to validate him, he validated himself.
It's about taking ownership of your own mind,
And not letting society define what smart is, you define it for yourself.
which leads perfectly to the final lesson, and I think my favorite one, transcending your environment, the power of reframing the narrative.
This goes right back to the Staten Island versus Shaolin concept we talked about at the beginning.
It's the power of imagination as a weapon.
It is so profound. They looked at a world that was objectively ugly. Gray concrete buildings, police sirens, poverty, danger, and they chose to see a world that was epic. They chose to see a kung fu movie playing out in real time.
They used metaphor to escape the trap before they could physically leave it.
And that's the lesson. You can change your reality by changing how you describe it to yourself. If they had just accepted the narrative that they were poor kids from the projects, they would have stayed there. That would have been their ceiling.
But they didn't.
By believing they were Shaolin monks on a mission, they started to move differently. They carried themselves with a different kind of dignity. They demanded respect. The narrative shifted their behavior, and their behavior shifted their reality.
They visualized the exit before the door even opened.
And that mental shift is what created the opportunity for them to physically escape. It all started in the mind.
That is powerful stuff. So let's bring it all home here. We've gone from a basement in Staten Island, flooded with water, destroying priceless beats, all the way to the Colorado Symphony. We've gone from the failure of, "Ooh, I love you, Rakim," to the RZA being a global cultural icon.
It's the ultimate case study in how specific authenticity can become universal. They didn't try to be for everyone. They tried to be extremely local. They talked about their streets, their slang, their favorite movies, their inside jokes.
And paradoxically, by being so intensely specific, they became universal.
Because people, at a fundamental level, respond to truth. You might not know what the Stapleton projects look like, but you know what struggle feels like. You might not know the details of supreme mathematics, but you know what it feels like to want to be part of a secret club, to have knowledge that others don't.
So here is the final thought for you, the listener. The big question we want to leave you with. The Wu-Tang Clan succeeded by taking their dungeon, their limiting, harsh reality, and reframing it as Shaolin, a mythical place of power and training.
So the question is, what represents your current environment? What is your dungeon? Is it a dead-end job, a town you feel stuck in? Is it a creative block that feels like a brick wall?
And once you've identified it, how can you reframe that narrative? How can you turn that constraint into your training ground, into your origin story?
Don't just look at the concrete, see the temple.
Use your imagination. It's the sharpest sword you have. That's it for this deep dive into the 36 chambers. Keep your neck protected, and we'll catch you on the next one.